was the one about home exteriors and I guess different ways of painting them, either having to actually both ways are kind of fitting in with the rest of the neighborhood, but different ways, I guess, that you can fit in with the neighborhood. What do you remember from the article? What was it talking about?
Not very much, but I remember it about some maybe it's about some house front decor, and it is also how different people attitude to their homes and their homes exterior. So some people prefer to make some bright accent and paint their doors in different bright colors, and it's they maybe express their personality using this way, and a few of examples of maybe some district in different cities. As I'm not mistaken, about England and Scotland mostly, and how people make their homes more bright, and how also maybe in general about some cases of different attitude to decorate your exterior, and so maybe that's all that I remember. Excuse me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you covered most of the main things, though. This was the main kind of ideas, really, that there are different attitudes towards it and different things that are considered okay to do in different places. And also the fact that there's actually a lot of rules about this. Depending on where you live, there can be different rules about what you can and you can't do to the outside of your house, whether we're just talking about your front door or I guess all of the outside of your house. So maybe some places have strict rules about what you can do, but it might be a different rule actually. Might be in some places that you can't paint it bright colors in some places, and in other places maybe you have to paint it in a bright color, kind of fit in with all the rest of the buildings around you. So I guess you've already heard some of this. You're already aware of these kind of issues already, right, Konstantin? This wasn't something new to you, this idea that, you know, you could have different rules that could control what you can and can't do to decorate the outside of your house.
Yes, I faced it in my professional experience. So it's maybe about some regulation, and it's always was controversial things. Then it's about maybe more, if we say more general, it's about freedom of every habitant of building. So it is not new for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, maybe that's maybe that's a good question to ask then. What do you think about it actually? Do you think that everybody should be free to do what they want, or do you think that it's a good thing to maybe have some rules and some regulations about this?
Depends on situation and depends on the maybe place where your home located. So if you live in big community, so you have to follow some rules and restrictions. And if you live in private cottage and it is maybe your own, if it is allowed to, it is not, if it is not restricted, you can paint in any color you want. So it depends on situation. But if we say about high density districts of city, especially big cities, there are very strong regulations, and I maybe admit it for myself because it's just rules. It's just a way to communicate with another habitant and another population of this city, and it's a kind of law. It's kind of phrase. No justice, no peace. So it's just a way to communicate and a way to get well with each other. It also relates to how you paint your facades and even how much floor have the house, and also about in our country we have, for example, special restriction, and each living room have to take a direct solar ray during 2.5 hours per day. So it is just requirement to every living room. So you have to calculate how moving sun to be proper and maybe to follow this rule. Thank you.
Okay, that's interesting. So let me just check to make sure that I understood. You're saying that maybe in like a big city where there's a lot of people living close together, that we need some of these rules so that everybody feels comfortable and so there's no arguments or no problems caused by people painting things really strange colors. But for example, if you live maybe, let's say, in the countryside where your neighbors are a little bit further away, there's not so many houses nearby, then it's okay. You should be allowed to kind of paint or use whatever colors, whatever kind of decorations you want. Is that what you meant?
Yes, exactly. And it's maybe some imply some government structure, so existing of some commission of architectural control. So if you want to paint your exterior, you have to pass this commission. So this special amount of people who give you approval for this decision. So, and it's maybe in general also about zoning, and it's, for example, that zone for residential building, and also special zone for business center and shopping mall, and another zone from some industrial building. So it's about regulation in more general way, and some small settlement maybe have not so straight regulation, and if it is allowed to do so, it is normal thing, and if you pass this kind of commission, or maybe commission is not required for make this decision, and so if it is not forbidden, you have to paint in any color you want. But it's a little bit different. For example, if we have about clothes and your dressing, so you can wear any color you want, and we're talking about your personal body, but then you're talking about some real estate. It is not only your personal, but it is also about environment, and environment is public space. So it's not about your personal decision. That's why maybe important to follow some rules.
Yeah. I guess my question is, do you think we need to have these rules? Like, do you think it's actually important to have these rules? Because obviously they exist at the moment. So, like what you were talking about now was talking about kind of following these rules that already exist. But do you think that we actually need to have these rules? Are these rules necessary?
As for me personally, yes, this rules is necessary. So it's I maybe repeat it. It's kind of law. It's kind of justice. So if we don't have this law, it can we can put in chaos, and it will be anarchy, and it's about no rules. It's always relate to some crimes and something like that, and some deviation which is not normal. So we have to we have to responsibly we have to have a responsible attitude to such kind of things. It's not only maybe wall of your building, it's about your city in general.
Okay. So, okay.
What do you think, Natasha? Maybe you have another opinion. So I will be very happy to hear
it. I'm just wondering, because normally when we have these kinds of rules, like to protect other people, to respect other people, it's because maybe something could happen that could be harmful to someone, or disrespectful to someone in some way. And I'm just wondering, when we're talking about like the color of our front door or the color of our house, I'm wondering in what way maybe that could hurt another person, or maybe kind of be rude to another person. You know, I'm wondering how the color of your house could maybe be disrespectful or dangerous to someone else in some way. Does that make sense?
Yes, but maybe, for my opinion, you a little bit underestimate the significance of such kind of things. So it's maybe you paint your door in pink, and it's maybe your it's about rights every people to express, but I'm not agree with it. It's like a traffic laws, you know. There's like a car, and they are moving, and to avoid of some injuries and some yes. Let me please remember it to avoid some accident on the road. We have to follow these traffic laws. and also to avoid some it's also maybe proper to name it accidents, because every city, like a public space, have some source of maybe influence and source to attract tourists, and maybe a lot of different kind of sources that have impact to living of its habitant, and that's why it is important to follow some rules in urban planning and in general urban rules, and it is also related to how do you able to paint your facades.
Okay. So how do you think then that, like, let's say a building or a neighborhood or a city, because I guess maybe all those three groups could be involved in the decision. How do you think that you should decide, what's okay and what's not okay when you're talking about like what color you can paint your building? Do you think there should be kind of a meeting with everybody who lives there? Should it just be based on what's been done in the past? How do you think that a decision should be made about, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable when we're talking about painting the building?
So the mechanism is already exist, and it's some government structure, and as we say about the control, how you can to paint, have you about your questions in general. So it's maybe the mechanism is firstly is about some architectural supervision. It's special organ in government that control such kind of things, and also it is in democratic society. It's some kind of public hearing. So then people of then habitant of district come together and they make a decision maybe together. So it's like I don't know how it I am not sure it is proper name, but in our country it called public hearing.
Okay, so maybe everybody could take a vote and decide what they want or what they prefer.
For example, you and your neighbor, in maybe in more general neighbor in your district, you all come together and you say them, I want to paint my door in bright pink color. And would you mind I do it? So, and people make some vote and make this decision together, and if architectural supervision control some I don't know how it's some services which includes in government structure. So if also its service give you approval, you can do it with any problem.
Okay. Well, actually, about these kind of like the government services or the government approval, how do you know at all how they decide, what colors are okay and which colors aren't okay? Do you know if they have some kind of criteria that they're following or some kind of rules about why you can have one color and why you can't have a different color?
Yes, the criteria is maybe simpler than you can assume, because it's just it's a kind of brand book for every city, and the color is allowed and color is not proper, and also it is relate not only colors but also about hate and about how place you can just we call it red line, this the imagine line that the front building of the front wall of building shouldn't be under this line but only behind this line. So it's about pedestrian, it's pavement. So it is just if we talking about color, it is also kind of brand book, and this commission just make decision using this kind of documentation.
Okay.
And also it's related to advertisement, and it is also exists some restriction. And for example, if we take as an example shopping mall, and mall, it implies some maybe imaginary street, and the small shops they place it at the part of the street at the left and the right, and the advertisement maybe to be exact is signboard. You know, it just if you it's the under the entering signboard. You understand what I mean? It's
yeah, like
special
those kind
advertisement.
of the kind of like those boards that you can put out on the street, right? So it's kind of you can move it to different locations. It's not something that's fixed. Like,
yes, but I mean the special special advertisement. I just write it down in. Excuse me, my pronunciation is horrible, so, and not only pronunciation.
No, signboard. The pronunciation was okay.
So signboard is advertisement, and you also have to follow some rules, and some shopping malls, for example, despite of some corporate style and many things, they need, for example, only black and white colors, and companies should to change their logotypes and their signboard according to this requirement. So it's also relate to cities and relate for towns, and people should follow and paint their colors in some color, and it is not about the self-expression. It's maybe following some rules, and so it is not about self-expression, and maybe I say it repeatedly. If you have if you have your private house and cottage in some place there is no regulation. You can do for your own what you want. But if you live in some communities, especially in the high density communities, there is much of population, you have to follow this restriction.
These restrictions.
Restrictions, yes.
Okay. So you think
but
then?
I'm not sure.
So you think then that if you live in like a city, basically, then you can't really express your kind of, you can't express yourself, at least not through your house or things like that, or even your business if you live inside a city. Only if you live in like an area that's not very only if you live not even in a small city, I guess, only if you live kind of more like on a property, or you have your own, I don't know, your own land or your own kind of a farm, I guess. Because most people live inside cities nowadays, right?
Yes, people prefer to gathering together, and maybe it is also the problem. That's why we should to communicate with each other and following some rules.
Okay.
And maybe I want to also add you some example. In our country, we have some phenomenon. It's a multi-apartment building, residential building. There are a lot of apartments and a lot of floors. So almost every apartment have a balcony, and some people prefer to cover it by the walls made of glass. And it just you have a special kind of special room, glass room outside of your flat, outside of your apartment. Excuse me, it is clear. Balcony, this special kind of.
Yeah, sometimes we call this like a sunroom. So it's kind of, or we talk about an enclosed balcony, and then that enclosed balcony becomes a sunroom. So it's like maybe when it was built originally, it was supposed to be a balcony. So it was supposed to be kind of open air, but people have kind of put big windows around it so that it's technically like a closed room nowadays. It isn't kind of open. You can probably open the windows still, but it's kind of closed in space.
Yes, exactly. And lots of people, they make it so chaotically. I don't know how it looks so strange. It's some people make it's wider or bigger and try to make more space. And outside it looks so strange, but from inner space, then you use it's maybe very useful, and it looks normal. But if you look from another place, from outside, it looks horrible. It's just some chaotic buildings, and it is looks strange. It's not regulated by some rules, and it looks strange. Maybe I'll give you some picture and you understand. And maybe some building with terraces, and it's just a place outside of your apartment. And also a lot of people prefer to make the glass from made a walls from contain from windows, from glasses, and it looks strange. So it's maybe make architectural view looks in some peculiar way. It is it is deformed. It is not following the previous idea of architect. So it's some maybe I don't ready. Excuse me. Maybe I am worried. You know, I forget all words I should use.
No problem. That's okay. That's why we're here to practice. Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, I know that especially in very big buildings where there are a lot of apartments, and I think this happens a lot now in newer apartment buildings. When people buy the apartments or when people buy the apartments or first move in, sometimes they're given a list of rules about what they can and can't do regarding like what can be seen from the outside of the building. So maybe they would have rules about how they could actually change the outside of their building. I've seen or I've heard of rules about, the type of air conditioning system that you can install, because obviously the part of the air conditioning is usually on the outside of the building. So I've seen rules about, the type of air conditioner that you can have. I've seen rules about maybe putting things on windowsills or putting things on balconies. I've seen people get in trouble for hanging their laundry on their balcony. Apparently, they didn't like it that they could see clothes hanging there, drying on their balcony. Yeah, maybe they've enclosed it in a strange way. Maybe they wanted to change the windows and install a different type of window. So I think especially in newer buildings, they have more rules nowadays about what you can and can't do to try to keep the outside of the building kind of looking uniform, looking all the same. Maybe I already know what your answer is going to be, Konstantin, but I'm going to ask anyway because I think you're looking at this from the point of view of the architect. But what do you think? What do you think is more important? Do you think it's more important that the whole building looks the same from the outside, or that the individual apartments, let's say it's an apartment building, that the individual apartments are kind of useful for the people who are living inside them and kind of reflect what they need or what kind of things that they like as far as decoration and those kinds of things go? Which one do you think is more important?
I think both is important in the same. Maybe you have some private and public space, and they are different. So the people who live there have to understand it, and in their private environment, where they have rights to change everything they want, except of damage some construction, and then. But if we say about exterior, people have to follow in restriction and rules that and requirements to public spaces. So it is not their property, the outer view and the exterior. It is not private property.
But will the balcony be your private property?
Balcony, but your inner space in balcony, but outer view and exterior view, it is not your property. You should follow some rules to modify it. Because we say if you modify it, it change the whole facade of building, and it's about maybe general view of building, and it maybe relate more to public space than private.
Okay.
So, and for my opinion, it's not a good idea to make some extension to your balcony or something like that, or make walls from windows or something like, make enclosed spaces. So it is maybe relate to some regulations.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit difficult sometimes maybe for people to understand where maybe the balcony being, like which part of the balcony is maybe their space or the inside the balcony, and which part is maybe outside the balcony. Because obviously whatever is on the balcony is kind of can be seen from the street, right? Most balconies don't have a lot of privacy because there's no walls or there's no kind of protection there, right?
Yes, and it is part of facade. It is part of exterior of building.
So that would be the whole balcony, right? So whatever is on the balcony.
It just can be as the build as the build. So you have no rules to change it, because this public space is facade. You know, maybe you have heard this phrase. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's some writer, and maybe he is French, is La Rochefoucauld, and he said then I'm not sure exactly, but it's about freedom, and maybe your freedom stop to be your freedom, then it is damage freedom for someone else. So it's about your public space, and when your public space interrupt some public space of another people, so it's not, maybe it is not good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's an important phrase. I'm just not sure how a pink door might might affect other people's freedom. I guess that's where I get confused. But I understand. Maybe it's more visually appealing for the street if everything looks the same. If everything is very similar. What do you think then about these cities or these places where everything is really brightly coloured? What do you think about these places? Do you think people in these places should have to use these really bright colours as well? Or do you think they should be allowed to use kind of less bright colours or other types of colours?
I think it's amazing places, and you know, maybe some Italian I don't know how it, I'm not sure, it's Amalfian or something like that, this province in Italy. So they have some picturesque um, uh, villages on the bay near the sea, and they so have some bright and different colors, and maybe it is make people happier to live in such kind of place, but I'm not sure. It's rather the unsure for tourists, and maybe it is just for external picture, and it's about touristic potential of these places, and I'm not sure the bright colors can make people happier. To be honest, I'm not sure. For example, you need some more color, you can buy flowers or wearing in some strange bright colors dress or something like that.
There are maybe some other ways to get that brightness into your day. So why do you think maybe that some places decided that that it was better for all the houses to be really bright colors and really different colors, and for everything to be very bright and different, and other places decide, no, you have to have very kind of pale colors, very neutral colors, maybe only, like certain shades of blue or green or these kinds of things. Why do you think that there's these two different opposites?
Maybe it depends on local traditions and local customs. And for example, in the place there is very hot and a lot of sun, they prefer to do their facades from white and some bright colors, because it is reflect the solar rays, and it makes maybe more cladding of facade more durable, and maybe more for more long time durability for cladding of their facades. And if we say some different country, for example, in Norway, they prefer just maybe more dark color scheme, and it's about they use a lot of wood, and then wood with interact with environment, they naturally became some dark color. And if we say, for example, about Netherlands and England, they prefer some bricks on facade because they have large big humidity, and such kind materials as ceramic brick, it's very good interact with water and with fog, and in the condition of big humidity. So it's maybe about some practice and about how long your home will stay, and how long material of your facade will be look good and make its function.
So it could also be related to which colors look best in that kind of environment, or which colors are going to look best for the longest amount of time in that kind of environment.
It's maybe about Wait a second, please.
No problem.
It's maybe about some usage of material. So, for example, you make your facade from wood, and in some places, wood with interact with after the interaction with air and with high amount of humidity, wood became black or maybe more dark color because of natural impact. So people do it maybe initially and
they kind of do it deliberately
intention.
so it doesn't look old.
Yes.
You don't see that it looks old or that it's getting old until a much longer time.
Yes, deliberately, yes.
Okay.
And if we say about interaction with environment, so it's how long these materials will serve it is in general it is maybe wait a minute, please.
No problem.
It's maybe about some practical considerations.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense actually. Maybe this is why they chose certain colors in different places. There was this kind of practical reason why they don't want to be painting all the time. So they deliberately chose colors that they knew would stay looking good for an extended period of time. And then they know that they don't have to worry so much about some of the upkeep, some of the maintenance of these places. I think that would make sense. I think that's kind of logical, right?
Yes, and for example, of some practical reasons, why in the hot places where there are a lot of sun, people prefer some bright colors for exterior, because bright colors reflect sunlight, and it makes maybe it provoke more long usage of material of facade, but black colors absorb light, and if you for example in Brasilia may make your facade black, it will be deformed because black absorb light, and it will attract much temperature on surface on your facade, and it will be deformed, and after that it will be destroyed by nature.
Yeah, it would definitely make sense to use certain materials or different colors in different places to maybe extend the life of different things. Although I know as well, sometimes we just kind of copy kind of traditions or copy styles, things like this, without actually thinking about why they're like that. The shape of roofs, for example. I know in Australia that we use like the same roof shape that they do in England. And in England, it makes sense because they get snow. And so the
yes, and a
snow
lot of
falls off the
rain.
roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't happen in Australia. We don't really need roofs that are these shapes, but we still use them. Why? Because that's what we're used to. That's what
I-
houses have always looked like. So we use them because that's what they look like, but we don't actually need those type of roofs. So
It's just following some style, some Victorian
exactly.
style or something like that. It just
Exactly.
so its appearance is about look like something, but it is
Exactly.
not relate with some practical usage.
Yeah, that's it. So maybe there was a practical reason why it was done that way at first, but that practical reason was maybe lost when it was used in other places afterwards. So I think that's kind of interesting to think about sometimes as well. Sometimes we just keep using things because it's what we've always used, because we don't really question maybe why we're using it or why it needs to be a certain way.
And also, it maybe in some Asian countries, they have a lot of sandstorms, and sandstorms also have ability to um, uh, distract facade materials. So it's more proper materials. It's something like glass or something like natural stone. And that's why this kind of materials most widely spread there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've kind of learnt that these are useful materials or useful finishes maybe for their house.
Yes, but if we say about inner space, about interiors, uh, it's no boundaries for, so you can compensate inability to make to paint your exterior. You can compensate in your interior. So it is no maybe no rules how it's about painting or doing something. If we say about private spaces.
Yeah. So you think that people who do like these bright colors or who do want to have these colors in their space, they need to think about just using them, indoors inside their space, not necessarily outdoors, close to other people or where other people can kind of see it from the street.
Yes, or maybe doing something that maybe doing something else, not the exteriors of their building, but it's about self-expression, and all people needs in it. But exterior of your home is not best idea to express yourself, for my opinion.
Okay. Well, I know that you just finished saying that, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. If you had the opportunity to choose what color the outside of a building would be painted or what colors would be used, let's say a big new building in a city, what color would you choose? Would you go for something more traditional for the area or something more neutral, or would you choose kind of a brighter, more bold type of color?
Maybe for me it will be green, and I don't like some bright gray of colors, but it will be green
Would it
because
be a very bright green or a light green or a dark green, or there are lots of different types of green? Green is very broad.
a lot of different type of green. Maybe some building that have plants on their exterior.
Ah,
It's
okay.
it is it called Bosco Verticale in Milan. it's maybe famous building, and it's about some greenery on the exterior, and it's about plants they grow on the exterior. It's just a vertical forest.
Okay, so when you say green, you would have like a forest on the outside of the building then.
Yes.
Okay.
It's only about my peculiar change, yes.
No, I asked you. This is exactly what I asked. I said that you could paint it any color. There were no restrictions, so that was exactly the right kind of answer.
But you understand, it will be natural green. So it's not about some color, but about greenery in general. So it's a different type of greenery. It's also a flower, and it is not only green, but it can be a red flower contain of white flower or something like that.
Yeah, it's not going to be just all one color. It's going to be a good mixture of a lot of different things.
Yes, like a true forest.
Excellent. I think that sounds pretty good, actually. That would be pretty interesting. That kind of building, I think a lot of people would be okay with. You might have more luck getting people to agree to that kind of building.
But it have a lot of problems, such as insects, and you have to washing of these plants and
Washing or watering?
watering. Yes, excuse me. And the special systems, and it's just an ecosystem. So some animals can live there and make their nests, and some mosquitoes or something like that.
Yes, I think the maintenance for this kind of building would definitely be a little bit more complicated than just something.
Yeah, and expensive.
Yes, definitely. So maybe nice to think about, but not so practical. Okay. Well, we might stop here for today, but thank you. I hope it was interesting. I hope you you enjoyed being able to talk so much. You got a good opportunity today.
Sure. I almost lost all my words.
That's okay. You can take a break now and just try to find them all before tomorrow. Okay, well, have a good evening and talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.